We are rolling into week 2 here, folks, and that means we're already actually halfway done with the regular season of our fall series for Contenders Korea. I'm Possible, that guy's LaFawn, and LaFawn, despite the fact that we're technically only halfway through, I should say, a lot of teams' lives are already on the line, and we're going to be seeing quite a bit of bloodshed tonight.
Yeah, I mean, week 1 was a spectacular event, shall we say, in terms of what kind of came through. A lot of sweeps, I have to be honest, a lot of sweeps. It was not close week 1 in a ton of the games. I think we had one map 5, so that was kind of fun. But in general, it did trend towards teams at the top end being able to take down teams at the bottom end. A couple of surprises here and there. I think FM comes to mind as a team that has been more of an outsized impact relative to their expectations. Other than that, though, I think it's mostly followed, bar one, mostly followed a trend that I think we could predict coming into this season.
Were you thinking of Panthera?
I am thinking of Panthera.
I was thinking of Panthera just a little bit there. They haven't quite had the start we expect from them. They're part of that pantheon that comes back from the Overwatch League knockouts. Not off to a very hard start, 0-2 to start it off. But somebody's got to start 0-2. That's just how it goes. And their season isn't over just yet, and they have a match later today that we're going to be seeing. But the other thing that I think that has defied expectations a little bit is, we are on the live patch here for Contenders Korea. If anybody is just tuning in now, this is a sneak peek at what the next segment of competitive Overwatch is going to look like. And we were told that it would be a lot more Zarya than we ended up getting. Contenders Korea, it is far from a singular stale meta at the moment.
And I do think Zarya is sort of the favored pick, but I don't think it is the guaranteed pick, right? And there's a small but very important distinction in having that. And if you can play a good Zarya composition, you're likely to find a ton of success. Let's take a look, though, at how we are going to get into the playoffs a week from today as we get set to see the group stages here. Top 3 from each group move on to the playoff bracket.
Yeah, top 3 from each group, and again, we have those 5 knockout teams and then 5 coming up from the WDG Open. If you're first in your group, so if you're probably poker face at this point, we'll see what happens with Group B, you get to skip the first round of the playoffs while the second and third place teams from each other group battle it out. Of course, if you're 4th or 5th, you just don't get to go to playoffs at all. See, they're not on this bracket. They won't go. And they won't even have a very good chance to get to the WDG Esports studio on land for the grand finals Sunday. 2 weeks from, I guess it's technically yesterday now because time zones and things like that. But hey, less than 2 weeks then, LaFawn. And one of those is going to be very busy.
Yes, indeed. We still have to run through the rest of the group stages this week, right? A couple of days here, and then we move on into the single elimination bracket that does culminate, as you highlighted, in the finals on LAN. So a very exciting, very busy final send-off, I guess, to the Korea Fall Series. Though, let's take a look at the group standings. And as you can kind of highlight, Group A, I don't want to say it's like fully locked up because there's always a chance, but Poker Face looking like the dominant favorite there.
We definitely have some top heaviness, some body heaviness, and then FM comfortably splitting the difference between those two segments of teams. Panthera Revival, they're going to need to fight really hard to try and squeeze into that 3rd place spot. Looking over at Group B, on the other hand, Dreamers have broken away from the pack a little bit. Now, SPG not far behind, but they certainly had more contentious games in their first 2 sets there last week. They were the team that just barely won that map 5 that we were talking about, and then even a 3-1 thrown into the mix there. So not super clean, but hey, a win's a win, right?
A win is a win. And as we get set to look at today, right, these are games that have a ton of meaning, right? We did see the fact that, LEAMICS probably on last chance here. A loss today likely seals their fate, and the same is true for Panthera at the bottom there in Group A at the second match of the day. So, here on the first day of week 2 of the fall series, games that matter tremendously for the standings, though, as of course we will start off with LEAMICS FC taking on Simprissa Gaming.
I mean, this is not going to be an easy task for LEAMICS. It's a tough group, right? Them and J&GK versus 3 teams coming back from the knockouts, a lot of which made some upgrades coming back from knockouts. You know, young players that couldn't play in Overwatch League getting into the mix. Lee Soo-min coming back to SPG, which we'll take a look at later on, right? So LEAMICS, certainly a tall task to ever be competitive in this group. But, you know, these guys, if not necessarily as strong in the Overwatch maps as they could have been, they have strong personalities at the very least. Grace, and was pretty convinced moving into this season that everyone was underestimating them, that they were going to 3-0 sweep everybody. It didn't quite work out that way, at least to start it off. But, you know, if you can 3-0 your second week, maybe, you know, just a late bloomer on that one.
And I mean, I do think that they're correct in terms of the fact that they were a team that was able to perhaps perform here. As we get a look at our match preview.
I believe that 16 refers to the amount of mathematical possibilities for LEAMICS to actually get into playoffs.
Yes.
But I mean, they're shooting better than the Avengers did. So they got that going for them at the very least.
Yeah, that's true.
Still not many.
The one caveat here is that I do agree with Grace that they're a team that shouldn't have been underestimated, and they weren't. That is the big thing, right? Coming in, there were flashes of brilliance from LEAMICS FC. You know, even though they were down 0-6 in map score after week 1, they were playing some maps close. It's just a case of, like, in Final Fight, multiple times in Final Fight on Control, on Hybrid, they just weren't quite able to push it over the line. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that other teams are preparing for them. So, you know, maybe, I mean, LEAMICS is correct in terms of that they've got the talent there to kind of compete. The truth is, though, is that when you put a kind of target on your back, everyone is going to make sure that they're, you know, ready for that. And for LEAMICS, that's a tough place to be. Unfortunately for them, you know, there's no more excuses left. They have to kind of win out from here.
And they're a pretty green roster, which isn't just, you know, a pun about the color in their logo. Not a ton of experience comparatively to some of our other teams in the fall series this season, right? You know, Soki-chan and Pure, Taylor, Osiris, these guys have barely any at all. Even Grace, the technically most experienced player on this roster, has really only played, what, season and a half in Contenders Korea, and that's just this year. It's a lot of weight to put on the shoulders of relatively inexperienced players. I think Grace not only has been really fun to watch in a lot of that personality, but has been phenomenal on the tank. That being said, their competition is no joke. Milgaru, Wu-Chan's, Lee Soo-min, if you've been around Contenders Korea, or if you've watched the Overwatch League knockouts, you'll be familiar with SPG. They were one of those Contenders teams up there. KSJ and Argon starting us off today. That's what SPG have been doing on Control. They like to run KSJ and Argon on the Bastion and Symmetra, respectively. We'll see Aiden, although a little bit later on, probably.
And if I have one critique, actually, for SPG, this is a roster that came in with high expectations, right? This is a team that should have really been at the forefront of their group, and they struggled. They did struggle in week 1. So the question now is, have they, as they trend towards playoffs, pulled the SPG Classic, where it's a slow start trending into a much stronger finish, or is it a roster that has sort of waned from its very peak to a now more consistent average that, even though they're still winning, is not quite as comfortable as it might have been in the past?
We're going to start off on Antarctic Peninsula here today. The first map, our control map, is selected by the administration, as you can see on your screen. And then from there on out, for the rest of our first to 3 set, it is loser's pick. Antarctic Peninsula. This is, I think this is only the second time we're seeing this on this current patch, the live patch, Lafon. And last week, we didn't get a great sample size, as it was one team that just wanted to, like, dig their head into the Winston jump pack and run Winston as much as possible. Didn't look great then. I expect that sort of either of the more modern compositions, I'll say, with the Orisa or the Zarya, to work phenomenally here.
Yeah, I mean, aside from sub-level, right, that is like the one that it's a bit of a question mark overall. But on both Labs and Icebreaker, which are the 2 open maps, actually we start off here on Labs, they're a little bit more open. You can play the rush style just a little bit, and we'll see how well that kind of goes through. This is an interesting aside, though. SPG, they do have a Wrecking Ball, I don't want to say, a Wrecking Ball specialist, actually, in Milgaru, and this might be LEAMICS Perhaps understanding that SPG might posture for this startup, this is a good read as a counter to the opening gambit.
Empire is going to make Milgaru's life very difficult. And Milgaru, not a tank that's especially prepared to peel on the Wrecking Ball. It's harder to do that. Wu-Chan, able to just barely get out of there before the hack fully went off, and Grace over-investing a bit, unable to secure that Giliari. So not the ideal start for LEAMICS, and SPG will capitalize.
Interesting thing here is that this composition from SPG is kind of every player for themselves.
It is
right?
a little bit all over the place, isn't it?
So for LEAMICS, their win condition is really to isolate a player, and certainly easier said than done, but and kind of burst down while the rest of SPG want to clean up. That being said, I actually don't think this dive hybrid is really what is going to work against SPG. Remember, with every player for themselves, who are you really going to get on aggressively? And that might end up being the difference maker in the end.
Yeah, I mean, Lee Soo-min seems the most vulnerable in theory. Milgaru right now getting battered. Really well done, finding him on an angle where it was difficult for the rest of SPG to get over there and support him. Reminder, I mean, Lee Soo-min, they have a hard time actually healing Milgaru. He has to be running around getting those health packs. So if he gets caught like that and LEAMICS are able to push onto him, not much he can do.
Yeah. SPG actually got caught watching the setup from LEAMICS, and off screen the Tracer gets dueled by Osiris as well. So in that instance, LEAMICS just win a bunch of isolated duels and kind of turn the point back in their favor.
Ult's coming up here too for both our squads. I'm keeping an eye on that EMP, but the Nano's the first thing out. Argon already hitting the floor. Nice railgun shot there. KSJ at least surviving while the Immortality field is up, but Grace doesn't really mind. Can just sort of peel back. Nice little bit of damage there. A Captive Sun coming in to try and keep LEAMICS on the back foot. But, I mean, it does get Grace. Wu-Chan with a nice couple additional shots, and KSJ coming around the side. Pincers onto LEAMICS, and SPG get their flip.
Weirdly passive from LEAMICS. Again, it's not like they didn't have utility, right? SPG seemed to be willing to invest after LEAMICS brought in the Nano, and LEAMICS just kind of watched SPG take space back from them. So perhaps just not quite expecting the pressure. Now, I mean, we're setting up for an EMP fight here. You kind of want to see the dive come in on the high targets.
This is unlikely to get anyone. Yeah, no, I mean, just annoying Osiris more than anything there. This EMP does have to be the difference maker.
I like this. Solo target Lee Soo-min. Just solo target Lee Soo-min. There it is.
Hey, yeah, no, slap that Baptiste into the wall. Turn him into an art decoration. Chan does fall, but with KSJ so low. Oh, the healing. Oh, and he didn't walk over the health pack. It was right there, but it's okay. It's okay. SPG are stabilizing regardless. Milgaru has been doing work in the back line alongside Argon. And with us at 87%, LEAMICS already feeling like this first round's going to be tough for them.
Yeah, that was 3 ults for 1 kill from LEAMICS.
I want to say worth, but it wasn't. It wasn't. Not quite. Now this overclock really has to put in overtime, as we're in overtime. This Matrix makes it hard to truly commit to a dive. Oh, even with the block out, Grace can't get around the corner. Ant Matrix Bastion is just absurd, even on the live patch. They didn't nerf his damage, folks. They did not nerf that at all. So SPG with a solid start.
I liked the idea of the setup from LEAMICS FC. This has really been sort of their Achilles heel this season, is that their setups are fine, actually. It is their tempo that is the issue. Like, look, as the beat comes in late, Sokic is already dead, and by the time they're able to kind of follow up on further damage, it's 2 more eliminations, right? So it's just a little too slow here from LEAMICS FC, and I mean, it's easy for me to stand here and say, hey, just play faster. But, SPG, they've played against some of the best teams in APAC. They're not going to allow you to set up and kind of take fights to your advantage.
One more chance here for LEAMICS. A little bit of a pivot in the composition. The Torbjorn comes out to, I guess, give Argon a little bit harder of a time, but it doesn't really matter when KSJ is the one dumping in damage. Already 2 down. LEAMICS hardly even got to see the point.
I do not like the Sojourn Torbjorn hybrid here. The previous point, you actually had a way to set up on a player who was like off on a flank, right? And yeah, there it is. LEAMICS will actually switch up compositions now as a result.
this goes right back to the concern we had. The Sigma is not bad, don't get me wrong, but with no Lucio, it can be so slow. I mean, trying to just walk on top of KSJ, at least you have the kinetic grasp, a nice accretion too. Oh, and I mean, if KSJ can't quite get the immortality field in time, that gives LEAMICS an opening.
Now you need cleanup though. You need these eliminations to continue.
It's hard to pin a lot of these SPG players down. Eventually, Empire with a nice shot on Wu-Chan. The flip coming over mid-fight, too. SPG not able to keep their toes on the objective, so they'll have to go for a soft reset here.
I like that. It's patience here from SPG. This is a lot more. This is a lot more stable of a team than we saw last week, actually. Willing to give up space to reset fully without having to kind of wait everyone to come off the respawn timer.
Still behind on that Amp Matrix charge, though. So it's hard to walk up here, especially without any cover. KSJ, I mean, metaphorical tank rather than a literal one. Oh, Grace gets obliterated. Couldn't pull out the kinetic grasp in time. A nice pulse, too. So well done by SPG. They use those resources the second they get up to them.
Very efficient from SPG. And hold on, what's Lee Zoom doing there?
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's tough for LEAMICS, right? They don't have a fast-moving composition. Oh, nice. Actually, quick aside, by the way, for Impure. Historically, a hit scan player. Actually took up the flex position because they needed someone else on a team. So, Ackerman's comfort pick here with the Sojourn.
Yeah, I mean, nice stuff, but unfortunately, Taylor not able to get out of that artillery. Here comes the overclock, and it's withered away so quickly. The Sigma shield just cannot last in the face of KSJ's Bastion. A lot of attempts here by LEAMICS to try and get rid of that brutal threat, but it just wasn't meant to be.
Not a lot of mobility from this team, right? And then once they get out of position, how are you going to clean up?
These staggers are brutal.
I mean, surely that's the map, right?
It's gotta be, right? We're at 80%. Not really any ultimates other than the Molten Core here for LEAMICS. Grace now going over to the Desperation Doomfist to even try and touch.
As long as the counter's still going, there's still chance.
Bro, that's a minefield and a Captive Sun in their spawn. SPG are taking no prisoners. They know their games last week weren't as clean as they maybe would have liked. So they start off damn near perfect on Antarctic Peninsula.
I mean, that's a much more convincing second round even. I think the first round was, it felt like the composition was trying to get its footing, and then on the second, it really took... I think the speed that SPG played at was more to what we expect a caliber of this team to do, right? Keep in mind, these are players that had played against the Owl, the Owl teams in those knockouts, and the pace of play in those games is so very high. It feels like LEAMICS is just walking when SPG is sprinting, and that is going to be the difference for a map number 1. Not out of the woods yet, not done, but SPG are definitely looking like they're on the up and up.
With every map lost, those 16 possible futures shrink and shrink and shrink. Who knows where they'll be at the end of the night. We at least need some map wins, if not just a full-on series win for LEAMICS to keep their playoff hopes alive. And it still feels like LEAMICS are a little bit non-committal on what compositions they want to run, right? It's very much practicing 1,000 kicks instead of one kick 1,000 times. Whereas you look at SPG, they know exactly what they enjoy, what heroes they want to run, and that'll bolster their spirits going into a map number 2 when we come back from this break. Not the ideal start for LEAMICS, but SPG are very happy with their dominant win on Antarctic Peninsula. That being said, I don't know if it's super a map that really plays into the game that LEAMICS really want to go for, right? Yeah. Doomfist was an interesting idea, especially paired alongside the Sombra. A good read on that Wrecking Ball, but it didn't end up working out for them before.
It really didn't. I mean, it's kind of a tough place to be for LEAMICS. I mean, you highlighted the fact that this map doesn't really play to their strengths, but on top of that, the composition they're trying to deal with SPG, it's only in theoretical aspects that some of the picks actually deal with what SPG were running. Right? It's not a holistic. on paper, and even on paper, it's not a holistic setup. You don't pick a composition to counter one character unless that is a very exploitable setup, right? In general, you want to play to, winning neutral fights, combining ultimates to win general fights, as that kind of moves on, and then move from there. The concept of kind of counter picking a single target, it's not like Sombra when she could ice out a Wrecking Ball literally single-handedly. Now you're trying to play dive target onto the the backline, and that just didn't happen. So it's a theoretical pick and one that just doesn't end up working for LEAMICS as they pick Midtown here for the hybrid. This should play further into their wheelhouse, right? We did see the Sigma pick from them on Antarctic Peninsula, and I mean the expectation is that is what is going to continue. Something of that ilk, something more stable, something more with a set front line that you can build off of.
Yeah, absolutely, right. Sigma has long since been one of Grace's better picks, so no surprise as LEAMICS go into Midtown that they want to try and lean into that style. We've seen some pretty alright defenses from them here as well. In their match versus Dreamers last week, despite the fact that they were playing against Dreamers, they nearly got the fuller hold, if I remember correctly, but unfortunately their attack was just a little bit too slow, and Dreamers end up being a very, very good team. So we load in now to LEAMICS attack, and I would be interested to see them try and run some variation of this composition. Now we'll see if they decide to keep the Doomfist once they realize Milgaru's on the Orisa for Midtown and not playing the Wrecking Ball or the Sigma or anything. But I like the idea of LEAMICS playing faster.
Yes. Yeah, no, the problem is this is not going to survive first contact, right?
Sure.
LEAMICS, they're going to roll out, they're going to see the Mei, they're going to see the Orisa, they're going to go back to spawn and switch off the Doomfist. Yeah, Grace sees like 3 players who could instantly ruin his day and heads back, I think. Yeah, I can still posture to keep going in.
Yeah, I think Impure is actually looking for an opening here. They want to at least try one dive before abandoning this composition. I don't hate the idea. Grace is in a little bit of a sticky situation. Not the ideal exit strategy either. Oh no. What a push there by Argon and Wu-Chan, going up, using the Mei wall, and making sure Grace has no time to recollect.
Man, that was 30 seconds of like nothing happening, and then LEAMICS takes one step too far, and then just LEAMICS falls apart, right? It's not a composition that I think works here. We need to, I don't want the Doomfist doesn't actually do anything in this setup, right?
Zenyatta is an interesting swap as well from Taylor here. Theoretically can put a little bit more pressure on Milgaru, but how do Taylor and Osiris ever get through this chokehold, right? How in the universe should they ever do that? Grace isn't going to be around to try and escort them, either now because he's dead, or in the future because he's playing on Doomfist. So Taylor and Osiris, yeah, I mean, they just have to take long pot shots here, and I don't think they're going to be able to accomplish anything.
Half their time bank is gone, by the way, and now is when they switch. It's, yeah, like another stagger.
Sometimes that how it be. This is more tenable, though. I like the Echo.
Yeah,
I like the Sigma. This is what I kind of wish they rolled out on 2 minutes ago, but, you know, better late than never. They have to roll through a cycle of ultimates here, which isn't going to be terribly fun for them.
No, it really won't. And I mean, the thing is now they have to just play aggressively and try and win. Not win. They should try. They have to be efficient with their attack and try and force SPG to overspend here, because now you're playing for final fight. If you're LEAMICS, or a mistake from SPG, which I'm not sure is necessarily something you want to bank on.
Down to a minute 45.
Okay, LEAMICS needs to do something.
On this entry too. SPG are content to just hold back here, right? I mean, they're not the ones with the clock giving them pressure. Now they're going to use the Ant Matrix. They get tired of waiting, tired of shooting fish in a barrel. They'd rather blow it up with some grenades.
Talking about overspending, right, from SPG. I think that's the closest you're going to get in this final
Two ults ain't really overspending either.
That's the thing, right? LEAMICS had to play that one aggressively, force SPG to overspend. Instead, SPG get to play, you know, kind of safe, and really the two cheapest ults for them. Terra Surge, not, you know, a great game changer, And Ant Matrix is sort of a by the way. So for LEAMICS, here's where they have to dump everything. They have to use all 5 ults in this fight just to get this point, or their point's over.
Oh, Taylor. Oh, okay, Taylor at least gets out of that. A dupe on the Mei, too. And Pierre, if he can get a Blizzard off, would be nice and helpful. May not even need it. Soki-chan picking SPG apart, just chilling on top of the fire truck. Nobody even contesting him. SPG ran over. It takes 4 ults, admittedly, from LEAMICS, but they will get themselves a cap.
So this is a lease on life, if you will, for LEAMICS in this setup.
A much needed one.
You cannot, yeah, the thing is for LEAMICS now is they need to be more, they have to be more judicious and more proactive in their approach on the second point, because you are not going to get another opportunity to throw 4 ults with SPG responding with, you know, with a artillery strike as a win condition.
Even if you do work up to 4 ults again and throw them all in, you need to string together multiple consecutive fights to win this here. Not enough to just throw 4 ults into one fight. That's an interesting Blizzard Argon.
Interesting is another word for
interesting is code word for not good. Taylor, this is an interesting push. Just walking into an isolated room against a Mei that still has walls up. We're devolving a little bit here. Grace trying to batten down the hatches, but no, the submarine floods and LEAMICS are sinking.
Okay. Wait, they use trance and all that. Oh, okay, that makes sense. The blizzard was used on Taylor. Taylor uses the transcendence to escape it. Okay, that's a lot less egregious in hindsight.
I mean, Taylor pushing back into that.
Taylor pushing
still not
back.
My favorite thing.
No, that is a mistake. That also means that LEAMICS now will not get a true 5 ult fight or 4 ult fight again, because it will take them until overtime to actually get that push, which means they cannot string 2 fights in a row together if it requires a 4 ult win.
I mean, we gotta see this nano get used sooner rather than later. There it goes, onto Soki-chan. Can he make the use out of it? Here comes a captive sun. That's an isolated room. Not quite enough damage to actually proc the explosion, though. Now running into Empire to try and trigger it. A gravitic flux punishing SPG. There we go. LEAMICS, you know, eventually they get SPG to make a mistake, and they will manage to get this payload moving again.
Straight up, great fight from LEAMICS. The first one, actually, of the match that they've had so far. And the reason I bring that up, because it's really impressive. When you take so many losses in a row, it's really easy to kind of get lazy in your fight approach. LEAMICS don't. And SPG fall prey to their own bait as LEAMICS get to move forward.
Artillery strike, the only thing for SPG right now. It doesn't get a pick. It gets one. Taylor, unlucky, buddy. We've all been there. I was playing yesterday and dying so much to artillery. It was so irritating. Not generally useful at this level, but you can make it work. It very much works. Now, SPG, yeah, they can just fall on top of LEAMICS here. They're not afraid. Even with an anti thrown into the mix. Nice immortality field. 1-for-1 trade, but Grace pinned to a wall and put in the blender that is the javelin spin. Bastion combo. Less than 10 seconds now for LEAMICS. Soki-chan with a nano. Nice shot. Hold on. Opens it up. Somebody's got to get to the payload. Somebody's got to touch just barely. The Transcendence gets there. A nano overclock. Okay, both run out for Soki-chan, so he can't step up to fight KSJ head-to-head. And then Argon swings around with a Blizzard here to ensure LEAMICS don't get any further. A valiant second effort on second point. But LEAMICS, only 91 meters to their name.
This is the unfortunate truth about Midtown, is that the Midtown Tunnel is the ender of pushes in Overwatch. One of the most difficult points to assail, full stop. And the fact they just don't have any momentum after first is what really ends up letting LEAMICS down. So, I mean, you hate to play what if, but what if you switched off that composition a lot earlier? What if you had an extra minute to work through generate ultimates? Right? What if you didn't have to have 4 ults to break open A? Still, LEAMICS will take that progress that was earned, and hey, considering how they looked on defense in the past, this is not unwinnable for them.
Look, we started the series with the Avengers reference, so I'm going to keep it going. We can't look at all these alternate timelines for LEAMICS on their attack. What we can do is question the timeline they're choosing for their defense. Now, previously, when we've seen LEAMICS here, it's been that Sigma. It's been a very solid composition. I don't know what cooking course they took that made them think this composition tasted good. I really don't know what kitchen they've been practicing in. This Doomfist has not worked for anyone in Contenders Korea, and it certainly hasn't worked for LEAMICS today.
And I think the thing too is it's ignoring what SPG has been playing on this map. SPG has not played the Wrecking Ball on Midtown.
Yeah.
Right? There was one like instance where it happened, but that was as a response to something else. They have never willingly opened up.
It's tragic too, because if Grace just swapped to the Sigma, I'd actually love this composition.
Yeah.
A Midtown defense. You'd have Grace holding the line, and then so much long-range damage to poke at SPG while they try and make these rushes happen. Instead, we've got a very aggressive snowball comp from SPG. Where do they want to put this teleporter? Who do they want to try and run on? They know the supports are back here. Taylor stomped into the dirt. Not a chance in the world. Nice little shot, though, from Ampere. He's really been nailing it on the Sojourn today. Love to see him back on something he's very comfortable with. One tick already taken for SPG. They are a little bit stuck, but, I mean, to be stuck on the objective is a good place to be. And somebody's got to touch. Somebody's got to touch. Okay, nope, okay.
And here's where it gets really dicey, because no one actually gets to the objective. They're going to die in the spawn of SPG now, and that means
they actually only get one more fight.
They only get one more fight. This is just a catastrophic scouting from LEAMICS, from out of game to in game. This is not a good setup from them.
There's something to be said about like practicing a composition for a week and being really confident it could work. But no plan survives first contact with the enemy, right? This plan has been shattered by SPG. And so is Osiris. Osiris blown apart.
And now as the payload rolls into the final objective, Grace makes the switch over to the Sigma. But it's too little too late. They have nothing.
I mean, Blizzard Online too, right? You just force the cart here. The second Grace goes over to touch, I mean, he's trying to take control of the ground right now. Oh, no. He's whirlwinded back into the enemy team. The Blizzard's going to lock him into a room of death. No chance for LEAMICS to help him or even think about contesting. SPG are wasting no time.
And for SPG, I mean, this is what we needed to see from them here in week number 2 after... I mean, calling it a sluggish start is perhaps overstating things, but certainly not the flawless expectations that we have of them. For now, though, SPG are on a mission to close this one out as they find themselves at match point in nearly a record time. Aside from one objective given up on Midtown, it has been a lockout. And hey, now as we head to the third point, flashpoint, an opportunity for Simprissa to close this one out.
Yeah, absolutely. SPG, you know, a bit of a rocky start last week, but they also had some hard competition. Right? You know, they start off against Euphoria. It used to be known as Rhodes for anyone maybe just joining us this week. Another one of those Contenders teams coming back from the Overwatch League knockouts. Then they play against JNGK, who have been a very pleasant surprise thus far this season, right? So understandably rocky in the first week. Here today, SPG look damn near flawless. There's like one weird fight in that entire mix, and otherwise SPG, they're looking to clean this out and get us on to match number 2, lickety split, after this break. One more map, one more chance. LEAMICS, can they pull off the first reverse sweep of our fall season? I'm going to be honest, not looking terribly likely.
It's unfortunate.
SPG,
yeah,
they look really good today.
It's unfortunate for LEAMICS that Flashpoint is map number 3 because Wrecking Ball comes back to the mix. Right? This is where, you know, SPG, one thing they did is last week they actually switched to more of the Wrecking Ball in their second game. The first game they were trying to play it a little bit more steady with the Orisa, but they've integrated the Wrecking Ball a little bit more here and there. And then today obviously opened up on Control to great effect. The fact that Flashpoint is map number 3 when you have to win to keep your, season hopes alive at this point for LEAMICS is a bit of a tragedy, because now you get back into a map where of the 2 picks, both are high mobility maps, both are maps where the Wrecking Ball can make a return, and it doesn't look great for LEAMICS here in map number 3.
And you have to imagine both maps are also where LEAMICS are going to try and incorporate that Doomfist a little bit more, right? At this point, go for it, right? You're 2 maps down in the series, and it's what you practiced. It's going to be a little bit hard to try and change the entire base of your soup at this point.
Man, this map set here. I think of the two maps, this should have been a New Junk City pick. Suravasa is, in my opinion, slightly easier for the Wrecking Ball to path through, and you can there are a lot more avenues to kind of hide. Whereas if you're gonna run the Doomfist, New Junk City's a little bit better for the Doomfist.
I think the problem you run into either way is even if SPG start off on the back foot, right, with the the Wrecking Ball, they can just switch to the Orisa. So I don't hate this pick specifically because it is a little bit better for the Wrecking Ball, right? That thus far has been the most beatable we've seen SPG in this series. So LEAMICS, they gotta try and figure something out here. That being said, interesting start for them.
The thing is, we saw this Junker Queen look last week actually in response to the Wrecking Ball, and it did not work. Gracie's just not enough to displace the Wrecking Ball, and then you don't do enough to deal with the rest of the team. The Junker Queen against the Bastion is extremely vulnerable, and knowing that SPG has no subs, I don't think this is the counter that LEAMICS. I think this is even worse than the Doomfist, actually.
No, don't say that. Let's see the first fight first. Come on. I believe in LEAMICS. Grace, Junker Queen, is about to roll. Watch this. Incoming, I don't know, really cool knife play. Okay, already a pretty solid dive here. A lot of pressure on Impure. That's not where the Sojourn wants to be, up in the mix of things that closely. But, or maybe it is. Maybe I just don't know Impure's game. Woo, all right. Hey, if nobody else got LEAMICS, Impure got LEAMICS. Unfortunately, now he's down. So it's going to make it a little bit more tricky. Still up 4v3 right now, though, LEAMICS. So they'll have the point first.
Impure clutched up a fight here. The question is, how many more can Impure do that? In this one, he will not be the opening gambit, because, of course, was taken down at the tail end of things. So this is good. The window for SPG is still available here to kind of retake this point. Oh, what are you?
I like this push from LEAMICS, trying to get right on top of KSJ, not let him get maximum damage. LEAMICS doing a good job. They got to keep Osiris and Soki-chan up. Soki-chan just barely able to peel around that corner. And SPG, we're trying to counteract this push, so they're not actually getting any meaningful pressure on the objective right now. Finally, they'll peel back a little bit. LEAMICS now have to circle back to the point, but do so swimmingly.
This is an interesting play from SPG because we already know how they play against the Junker Queen, right? It's that they set KSJ up, or they set the Bastion up as a bait play, right? And then have, when the rush comes in to try and take them down, that's when you collapse. Instead, SPG are allowing LEAMICS to just take KSJ down.
Oh, Cyrus, this is a bold play going for the Kitsune rush here. It's really hoping SPG overcommit. The Captive Sun actually whips in its entirety. There's a Molten Core making it hard for SPG to walk up, and it's 99%. Somebody's got to try and flip this over. LEAMICS, ooh, they're hanging on to this by just a thread, but that thread will turn into a very strong rope and get them the first point on Suravasa.
Really, really well done by LEAMICS. I mean, a little bit of an expensive fight, but this is a must-win point for them. So the fact to close it out there is tremendous. I mean, right now, the big difference maker for LEAMICS is Impure, right? The Sojourn player 100%. Stepping up to the plate and really taking things down. They also get a stroke of fortune with this being the second point. It actually is closest to their spawn. So they'll be able to posture early and prevent Milgaru from setting up this minefield as quickly as he kind of wants to prevent the contest from coming in. So I mean, LEAMICS back-to-back points now where they can perhaps sneak things away.
Argon immediately scouted on the flanks too. No coordinated dive effort going to be successful here. Impure gets rolled over. That's a solid start. SPG have been waiting for that. Milgaru giving them the business now. LEAMICS not quite able to shove into this corridor like they wanted to. That minefield is just enough to put them off kilter.
I mean, that minefield, it takes the entirety of the objective away, right? So you're forced to kind of play inside a corridor, and what that means is you can't rush down the damage dealer of KSJ, and then Milgaru just kind of cleans up. Now, it doesn't get easier. Because of the elevation changes on this second point, now that you don't have control of it, it's going to be a lot harder to run KSJ down, which was the win plan for LEAMICS on point one.
Oh, I love how aggressive this is. Grace already feeling the heat. Okay, the artillery and the dive in from Milgaru Argon. A lot thrown in on the front foot by SPG, but they're not able to destabilize LEAMICS on the approach. Oh, until Soki-chan gets caught off by the turret there. KSJ, a beautiful job, and now Impure in quite a bit of trouble. Kitsune Rush isn't going to be enough to bail LEAMICS out here, not this time, and I don't think they get another contest.
No, that is going to be the point here for SPG. So, I mean, a good start from LEAMICS on this map, but they'll need to kind of continue. I mean, they just don't have anything for this point, right? Like, the only ult that they were able to generate in time was the Kitsune Rush. And that's just not going to be enough to close out. SPG have just been a lot more patient with their resources. And I think that speaks to the kind of narrative of the game, right? LEAMICS, they know they're in desperation mode. They have to win points, so that they're more likely to overinvest. For SPG, they have room to give, and they're willing to take space as a result.
Nilgaru's already almost got another minefield here. That's an aggressive Ant Matrix too. Grace trying to go past it with the Rampage, but it's cleansed by the Suzu. Oh, everything invested now. SPG, they know that this could be the knife in the throat of LEAMICS if they were able to get one more here. LEAMICS invested such important ultimates there too, LaFon.
And yeah, I mean, even with SPG, you know, kind of responding, they still keep stuff in the back pocket. And I will say the kind of one trade-off there, despite losing that objective, is that they do have Molten Core. Molten Core will counter the minefields, and it will hold area of effect similar to the minefield if you can get in position to do that. Now the question is, how well do you get? How close can you get with a Wrecking Ball playing bouncer? Literally in this case.
Yeah, already such an aggressive minefield too. LEAMICS split to the high heavens. Taylor so low too, barely able to get to the objective. LEAMICS, they limp there, but it'll be without the legs of their tanks to try and keep them. A brief flip over for the moment, but unless Impure does something crazy with the overclock again, how could LEAMICS ever keep this going? Soki-chan even caught in the corner here. Here comes the turret form out too. Yeah, you know you can get the Torbjorn, or you should be able to. He's dipping and diving, and Impure's got the overclock out. Not quite able to get Lee Soo-min, but even without Grace, somehow LEAMICS stabilize.
I mean, that's a missed immortality field from Lee Soo-min. The Bastion just does not stay alive in the entirety of the turret form, so that's damage lost, damage left on the table. And LEAMICS, I mean, they've equalized in percentage now on this third point. A chance for them on the reset, because they'll have the Kitsune Rush on the objective, making it a lot more efficient and effective than it was the last time they tried to activate the gates.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
Soki-chan
no.
falling immediately isn't great. And this is too shallow of a Kitsune Rush.
And the
This
point
doesn't
flips.
give LEAMICS the opportunity to push onto the objective. It just kind of holds them right where they were off of it. SPG have flipped all the meanwhile. Not a half bad shot from Impure and the sound barrier to try and keep LEAMICS going forward, catapulting into SPG. Impure, though, he needs one more. He's sliding in, but he's ever so low. He gets the shot on Lee Soo-min, but it's just not quite enough. Not with SPG holding strong. Taylor, and Soki-chan, hold on, wait a minute. That shotgun's deadly in close quarters, but Soki-chan eventually falls. Taylor, the only one hanging around. He's just booping SPG off and desperately trying to flip this back. Does he actually get the flip? He does.
He does. The question about who can get back in time, keep the fight going, because again, they have to abscond from the objective now, and the mines are on.
Yeah, this minefield makes it ever so troublesome. Grace trying to clear these out, stuck in a corner right now. A Rampage available, but you can't just chuck yourself through all of those explosives. Just holding in the corner, hoping Osiris can keep him healed up on this angle. Taylor groups with him too. It's 99-99 on a pivotal point here. One more after this, but LEAMICS, they want to ensure that it'll be their map point. A Molten Core to keep SPG out, and KSJ is ever so low. The immortality field pulled out, but Nilgaru is put down. Nice pull too on a KSJ. LEAMICS are truly back in the fight.
What an absolute clutch from Taylor. All of that is brought back by the Lucio, able to keep the contest going. And the biggest thing is the boot to get the point flipped so that the point accrues in LEAMICS' favor. And now, I mean, LEAMICS perhaps have gotten their feet under them for the first time all series. Not an overinvestment. Grace, responsible under pressure, does not use the Rampage. And so SPG, as they kind of come into contest, they have to be careful not to use this Suzu too early. Grace will punish them if they do so.
Nilgaru scouted. Not able to get the roll through that he wanted to immediately displace LEAMICS. Instead has to go for more of an off angle here, and it doesn't really give much of an angle. Nice Suzu, that nullifies the amplification matrix. Grace walks through it and is on top of SPG before they even know what's happening.
Actual turn of fortunes here from LEAMICS, and it's SPG's turn to look bewildered as they approach the objective. incapable of picking up a single target. LEAMICS have really turned a different page. It feels like an entirely different team almost, as they're, I mean, presenting solid performance to kind of get this point early on their favor.
A united front from LEAMICS so far. And excellent ults to keep their odds solid for what might be the final point of Suravasa. What has to be the start of a reverse sweep. Already the pick on Wu-Chan. The Kitsune Rush thrown down beforehand, but KSJ, no, it's just too much. LEAMICS dogpile onto the Bastion each and every fight. The flip barely comes in for SPG, but it's brief. Barely 10% here.
And they're forced to kind of reset here and just take a couple of moments to pause the progress that LEAMICS has done and continue on their way. That's SPG investing, by the way. Grace still holds the Rampage in the back pocket.
Milgaro trying to get some shields with a roll through there, but I mean, what is the target? What is the objective? Now, finally, another artillery strike to try and split up LEAMICS. Is there an isolated target? Grace a little low, but commanding shout. Yeah, no, Grace is feeling fine. Nice Molten Core 2, now SPG. How do you ever even touch? It encompasses the entire circumference of the point. Milgaro falls, and LEAMICS are back into the swing of things. Just a few more eliminations, and they'll have themselves a first map win here. Wu-Chan, the last to fall, and LEAMICS are on the board in Contenders Korea.
What a recovery from LEAMICS. I was critical of this team on this map, and they have made me eat my words. An actual stunning performance there from them. They never allow the Wrecking Ball to set up on the last two pages, and I think the big critical pick there, I mean, Impure starts the map off in a tremendous fashion with the overclock, but the real beneficiary all the way throughout was Grace on the Junker Queen. Not so much for kind of putting Milgaro in place, but the rest of the team, making sure the supports from SPG had to work overtime, and that just opened up the rest of the team to be a lot more stable and calm, a lot more efficient with their utility, and as a result, they take the map and have kept themselves in the conversation as they move on from Flashpoint.
Those 16 chances we started with have become ever so slim, but they're not gone just yet. There might mathematically just be a chance for LEAMICS to squeeze into third place if they can actually complete this reverse sweep. Still a big if at this point. They got to get through push and escort when we come back from this break. I can't quite believe it, but we got a map number 4 in this series. If you'd asked me at the top going into Suravasa if we could have had a map 4, yeah, I would have looked at you like you needed to get your head checked. But here we are. I mean, and honestly, it's because LEAMICS played so unbelievably well on Suravasa.
Yeah, I mean, going into Flashpoint, we were skeptical of, I'll admit to that. I was extremely skeptical of both the pick and the sort of the composition as well for Suravasa, but they made me eat my words. An absolutely tremendous performance from them. Not just one player kind of taking over and carrying. It was a team effort across the board. Everyone from the Junker Queen on Grace, Soki-chan on Torbjorn, and of course, who can forget Impure and what he was able to do with the Sojourn back on a classic pick, looking so tremendous.
Yeah, phenomenal stuff there from Empire and the rest of LEAMICS. Now we do go to New Queen Street. They've started their journey out of the woods, but it is still a very deep, dark forest that they are stuck inside of. Now they got to go to New Queen Street. Hey, we'll be there soon, LaFawn. It's Toronto. It's what? Okay. Oh, apparently I thought LaFawn was giving me the silent treatment. It was an audio issue. Okay, well, either way, we go to New Queen Street here, folks. I'll try and pick up for LaFawn while you figure this out. Thanks for bearing with us. An interesting selection from SPG. Now, what I would like to see here is them sort of pivot back to that Orisa composition. One of the issues they were having on Suravasa was KSJ just getting walked on top of by the aggressive Junker Queen composition of LEAMICS. So if SPG are able to pivot to a tank that provides a little bit more peel than the Wrecking Ball, right? Orisa very much able to just sort of hold the line, keep Grace out of the mix, keep Grace off of KSJ, that would be phenomenal. The thing is, though, you can actually run the Wrecking Ball here on New Queen Street. Milgaru, that is his most comfortable tank by a wide margin. He's expanded that pool recently into things like the Orisa, but make no mistake, this is his bread and butter. So he's rolling out on this Wrecking Ball. I'm not super convinced by it.
Oh. I mean, they're going to have to make it work here, right? This is sort of this is the composition they've kind of stuck with this entire time, and will have to kind of continue to have its efficacy here.
No adjustments here from LEAMICS, no surprise. No reason to fix what just won you a map. The angle of engagement here is an interesting conundrum for Milgaru as well, right? Especially with LEAMICS going the long way, especially now that KSJ's down. I mean, no rail shot even necessary for that pickup on Wu Chan. SPG fall apart in the first fight.
I mean, now you're starting to question the setup from SPG. Maybe you need to go back to that front to back style with the Orisa to keep this one going, because clearly LEAMICS have identified where KSJ wants to play, and is just preventing him from setting up, and with the elimination of that front load of damage, doing so much work. And on top of that, Argon has been entirely nullified by the Torbjorn. It just feels like a solved position at this point from SPG.
That's a nice engagement. These supports can be kind of squishy. Where's the assistant? Somebody's got to help him. And Pier, gets rid of the reinforcements. Nice shot onto Argon there. Meanwhile, Grace trying to push this objective. Okay, we'll peel back a bit. Leave Soki-chan to the Wolves. If Grace can survive. No. Okay, so SPG will neutralize this minor advantage from LEAMICS.
Okay, and this is how SPG kind of plays this composition. It's how they've succeeded in the past too, right? Being able to kind of just identify, if they can get Impure down, things start to fall apart for LEAMICS.
Osiris narrowly able to get away from Milgaru. Hard to tell which one's the god of death. Is Osiris the god of death one? I always get my Egyptian mythology mixed.
Do not put me on the spot with that one.
I'll check later. Oh, that's an Ant Matrix and a lot of damage onto Grace. KSJ looking to keep the good times rolling, chasing down Osiris, who does get one. And KSJ not able to find any more here. LEAMICS investing on a two-player sound, but they didn't get the most important person in pair with an overclock. Needs some assistance. Okay, Taylor and Osiris get there, and helping rid the point of Milgaru, and Argon has to fall back or be sent back forcibly.
And critically, they do not give SPG the lead either. So that was I mean, Taylor has been the most impressive player. We've been talking Impure and the rest of LEAMICS, and well that we should, but Taylor has been quietly the most clutch performer of this squad, and yet again, just a great read on a clutch play.
What a call with that sound barrier. And the Suzu does get forced out by the artillery. That's not a horrible trade here for SPG, as long as they can find a way to capitalize on it. I'm looking at Argon with that pulse bomb. Can he get in the mix quick enough? He's just stealing the bot. He's just stealing it away. LEAMICS, you're in a 4v5 right now. Can you take the better end of that? I mean, it ends up being a very disadvantageous trade, and there goes Taylor. Pulse bomb delivered.
And with the bot being stolen now, this is actually going to be SPG taking, realistically, the checkpoint, one would think. And if Grace keeps hovering around to get staggered... Oh, no.
Complete encirclement. No chance for Grace there. And that means no chance to stop the checkpoint.
Yeah. And on top of that, LEAMICS invest in that point too, right? That is not in that fight. That was not a free setup for SPG. And this is so tough. I think the big part of this point, or this side of the point as well, is Argon, who was very quiet on Suravasa, is going to be unleashed because the turret is just not keeping as close a tab on the Tracer on the flank. Because the sightlines just aren't very good.
Ooh, okay, KSJ cut off, and another little bit of a late immortality field. That's the second one we've seen from Lee Soo-min thus far. Wu Chan from behind, actually able to turn the tides of this fight. Argon now putting a stop to the bot, which is trying to be absconded by LEAMICS, but they don't have enough health to make this happen.
Ooh. And I keep in mind, this is the checkpoint thing that was earned as well. These traits, I mean, it means that it's not gonna be like significant lead gain for SPG. But realistically, they just need to make sure that LEAMICS doesn't take the checkpoint away from them, right? And they've done so quite well. So it's on the back foot once more for LEAMICS here.
They've been on the back foot all series, though. Their calves must be getting a lot of workouts. KSJ still on that high ground despite a well-thrown knife by Grace there. Grace and Gracie. That's kind of funny. And I mean, it's hard to dislodge SPG from this position, right? Even if you start rotating on them, which you see LEAMICS doing. There's an Ant Matrix ready and waiting. Immortality Field, and this time, oh, it's a slaughter massacre! Both teams being blown to smithereens! And it's just the tanks left standing!
Get the checkpoint? Yeah, that's really bad. That's really
huge,
bad for LEAMICS.
And Milgaru gets out too. It's
Yeah.
gonna be a very quick recontest.
Yeah, I mean, it was a nice play by LEAMICS, but again, SPG, there's that pace that we expect from them. Team that's so used to playing against some really fast teams that even when they lose, it's not really a significant loss in terms of progress.
Oh,
bye.
Stuck there too.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do. Not in that situation against so much damage and an artillery strike. The Rampage thrown in does end up bleeding Wu Chan out, but Grace overcommits a bit. Oh, and now we're overcommitting ults too, LEAMICS. Let's maybe pull it back a little. I know things are getting dicey, but no need to throw something as important as a Kitsune rush in a 2v5.
Oh. What a cheap fight for SPG. I mean, straight up the worst ultimate in the lobby is the artillery strike. So to have it win a fight for you, right, you know, is tremendous. And I mean, to trade it for something as important as the Kitsune rush.
Yeah, and the Rampage too.
I mean, granted, that's a bit of a...
Milgaru set up behind now too. I mean, this minefield is a nightmare to deal with. And Taylor, they know he's got the sound barrier. He won't get a chance to drop his beat. Oh, the music, it's a deafening silence instead.
This is where the sort of the state of push comes into play, because for SPG they're still playing, you know, aggressively, but they don't have to kind of take space in the bot. They just have to keep the objective in LEAMICS territory to kind of wait, you know, take time away. And for LEAMICS, they're running out of it. 3 minutes left. That's not a lot of time, and they still need to win like 2 fights to be able to take this lead.
And this rotation didn't work last time. It's going to be tricky to pull off here, too. Especially, I mean, look at Wu Chan. He's hungry to throw the Fury of the Sun into LEAMICS. Chases them down. Nice sound barrier. Well done by Taylor, and that gives LEAMICS a fighting chance. Can they capitalize? Milgaru's the only thing annoying them right now. LEAMICS, you need a more viable target than that. At least they forced Milgaru back, and that gives LEAMICS room to breathe. A nice pull. KSJ has to have the immortality field, but it won't keep him alive for long. Argon diving into the backline, gets Osiris down, and now LEAMICS, they're on borrowed time. Can Ampere extend their clock? Seems to be doing pretty well so far, and SPG are out of there. They're trying to retreat best they can.
That is such a... That pick was such a or that last pick rather, is what is going to give LEAMICS the opportunity to take the lead here. Because it was onto Wu Chan as the payload flipped over the center line, that means that forward spawn is no longer available. So checkpoint should be earned here for LEAMICS.
Contest coming in. SPG don't want to give this up without a fight. Huge
Suzu.
artillery strike too. That's the Suzu already used. An aggressive push forward by LEAMICS with a Kitsune rush. Even the Rampage thrown in, and that doesn't give KSJ much of a chance. Most of the damage fallen by the wayside now for SPG. And yeah, even with a minefield, I mean, this just stalls more than anything, but LEAMICS, they've got this checkpoint under wraps.
They do get the checkpoint. Is there a contest available? Milgaru is the last one down, so actually no. LEAMICS will take the lead here.
And that bot takes a long time to reset, and Milgaru is very fast. One more chance, but not much to bolster it. I mean, we're a couple key percent away from these ults for SPG. If Ampere starts this off with a railgun pick, SPG are going to be on the precipice of a map 5 and a potential reverse sweep. Milgaru needs to live. He's got to get out of there. Okay, Ant Matrix thrown in, but the pulse bomb. Oh, Taylor, I think he slid into it. Uh-oh. LEAMICS so close, just 2 meters from taking the lead, but they can't convert now. There's only 60 seconds left.
This is falling apart. This is not done yet, though. LEAMICS has a path back into this map. Keep in mind that they had forward spawn that just now ticked away. So their respawn, Taylor should be back in very, very swiftly. And a neutral fight here with the overclock, or rather neutral territory win with the overclock, is what could push LEAMICS over the edge. And Pierre was the hero in map number 3. Can he do it again?
You can see them pinging it too. Argon with no recall can't keep the bot stalled any longer. That gives an opening. Here comes the overclock. KSJ, Immortality Fuel. He's knocked out of it, pulled out of it. Oh, no way. LEAMICS, how have they done it again? Milgaru's trying to keep them at bay. He knocks 2 off the map, and Pierce flies back to his team, and the healing is there. Osiris still alive, but somebody's got to get the bot moving. Milgaru wants to stall, but he needs to live.
Oh my, Impure, once again the clutch player. The thing is those 2 picks that Milgaru got enough to prevent LEAMICS from coming back in and contesting? Keep in mind, there is no animation now. This is last fight.
Look at these ults. LEAMICS, they've got Kitsune Rush and the Molten Core. It's so hard to contest. And another pull. KSJ, he's getting bullied, but a minefield blows away both DPS. How do LEAMICS convert this? Oh, the Rampage gives him a chance, but no, it's 3v3. Just tanks and supports, and the respawns are so close for SPG. Just a few more precious meters. LEAMICS, can you get it done? Lee Soo-min hopping around, just trying to keep Grace occupied while the respawns come back. Grace, you gotta get this guy. Okay, eventually gets it done. Oh, everybody's swapping to as fast of characters as they can. KSJ, no use on the Bastion. And LEAMICS are ever so close. One more map, one more chance to keep their playoff hopes alive.
An unbelievable performance from LEAMICS FC here in map number 4. The reverse sweep, very much a possibility. Remember, at the top of the season, Grace mentioned that everyone has to keep the expectations on them. If you play too close to them, they will punish you. SPG, they take a commanding lead in the first half of this series and have since then fallen to the wayside. A little bit of arrogance, perhaps, forcing themselves to stay on this composition that seems to have been solved regardless. LEAMICS will take full advantage and find themselves now 1 map away from the reverse sweep.
I mean, let's just be frank here, right? I know you're LaFawn, I'm Paul, but let's be frank for a second. The first 2 maps were not close.
No.
Not by any stretch of the imagination. We had like Doomfists flying into walls and it wasn't doing anything. But now LEAMICS just need map number 5 when we come back from a quick break. LEAMICS have clawed their way back after a disastrous start to this series, and now after fighting tooth and nail, they're just 1 map away from our first reverse sweep of the season. SPG, little bit of a familiar scenario for them. The second time they find themselves on a map 5, will they win it like they did last time, LaFawn? Not if they keep playing this Wrecking Ball comp, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, man. The thing about the Wrecking Ball composition, too, is it's not like the Wrecking Ball is playing badly, right? You have to think that Milgaru is the reason why that last map was as close as it was. I mean, multiple, a lot of those skirmish fights that kind of went on where there were trades was almost entirely because of Milgaru, like 2 on the knockoff on the side of the map. There was a couple where the minefields were really effective. But man, SPG are forcing this composition with the Bastion, with the Tracer, and it's just not been as consistent as you'd like it to be. And I mean, hey, this is no stranger to SPG. In the last match where they went to map 5, there was very much a Mr. Jekyll and Dr. Hyde setup for them, where or other way around, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. The maps where they won, it looked comfortable. The maps where they lost, it looked a little bit rough. And I mean, part of that was also Euphoria playing strange things. Here now for LEAMICS, for the first time all season, it feels like they have their comfort picks under them, right? That also plays into it. LEAMICS were trying to force things in the first 2 games. Here, they actually look like they're playing comfort characters.
Why is it that SPG can really own... I mean, against other really good teams, they seem to win maps much more consistently when people try to force Doomfist into them. First it was Sunjin with Euphoria, today, earlier on, Grace. But as we go on to Shambali Monastery for our final map of the series, our final map for LEAMICS to try and keep their playoff hopes alive, I don't think we're going to be seeing Doomfist, and I don't think we're going to be seeing much Wrecking Ball.
No substitutes, though, I do believe.
Where are Aiden, although? Someone put it. We need to get them on some milk cartons. I'm concerned. Where are they at?
Well, here's the thing.
I mean, don't get me wrong. KSJ and Argon are doing fine, but KSJ is getting walked on top of a lot of the time. Okay.
There we go.
All right, took 4 maps, but we finally got insane talent coming back into the DPS line.
Well,
again, no shade to
KSJ and Argon have played really well throughout the season, right? They are a key part of why SPG are where they are, right? Where they're looking at playoffs as being a very high possibility for them. The problem is that KSJ has only played the Bastion, right? Has only played the Bastion. It really feels like the Bastion composition was, I don't want to say solved because it had success, but it had more opportunities to fail than it had in the past. And so now you move to a DPS duo that has more flexibility, at least within the performance this season. And although they can play the Sojourn, they can play the Tracer, we obviously know they can play Hanzo and Mei, as they're kind of highlighting here.
Certainly flexible. Aid will go over to that Bastion, though. I mean, this isn't terribly surprising. All things considered, yes, it's the same hero that KSJ was just playing, but Aid does, again, give them a little bit more flexibility. And this is what you at least want to start off on with the Orisa and see if it can work. It is harder now, too, for LEAMICS, now that they're defending this map, right? The way that they were beating the Bastion before was rolling past Milgaru into the backline and on top of KSJ. Now it's harder for a number of reasons. One is Milgaru's on Orisa, who can block you. Okay, well, Milgaru's dead, so that's one obstacle avoided. The other issue can be, though, although putting up walls.
Yeah, but why did Milgaru die? Right, like there's a listen. There are times where a player just plays really well and identifies the the pick off and they deal a lot of damage. That should not happen against Orisa when the Fortify and the Immortality Field are available.
Man, Sokichan getting really caught off guard there. I think just a little bit of displacement from the Bastion grenade means that his rotation was a bit slow. And I mean, without Sokichan, yeah, Grace doesn't just have, he just doesn't have enough meat in the front line alongside him to keep contesting SPG. So it took about a minute and a half, but SPG are moving.
I do like the stall there from LEAMICS, though, right? They played that pretty well, where they kept the payload stopped as they staggered in. And they were able to kind of close it out. Now, Sokichan moves over to a Reaper. I mean, I will reserve judgment because LEAMICS have made me a believer after the last 2 maps. But Reaper has not been super hot.
Armor from Orisa and Bastion, though. Bastion! Oh my. Oh my. We talk about the amplified turret a lot of the time, right? Amplified grenade hurts too. Fun fact. A lot of damage.
And I mean, in a small room, there's nowhere to escape it, so.
Yeah.
Okay, we need switches now from LEAMICS. And I do not count the Reaper as a switch.
They're gonna play this one more time. They're nearly up to ults here, but that
the big problem. Yeah, the big problem is that you're gonna have to dump like 2 or 3, which is the Overclock, the Rampage, and the Unit Rush. And you expect that at least 2 of them will be nullified through some combination of Immortality Field and the Sound Barrier.
Nice push here. That's aggressive. Oh, Aid in a little bit of trouble now. Here comes a Rampage. It goes right through the Blizzard, and that's 4 players tagged. A Sound Barrier out to keep SPG up despite the bleed, and that will be enough for them to weather the storm.
Elimination onto Wuchai is also not meaningful enough. It's Lucio who's going to be coming back very quickly. And you still didn't get the Blizzard, right? Still did not get the Blizzard. So here's where LEAMICS is starting to make changes.
Immortality Field, I saw. My bad.
This is also now where LEAMICS is starting to make changes, but it's going to be haphazard. I mean, the Beast rather does not sync up well with what LEAMICS are running.
And I mean, this is a tough corridor to try and get the overclock into as well. Piercing past a lot of that meat, but I mean, it's a ton of damage thrown in, and Taylor with a good sound barrier. SPG do manage to stabilize, and they get that Blizzard out too. Certainly more expensive for LEAMICS, but not bad.
It's okay. It just kind of continues now. How do you win a neutral fight, right? This composition is really just kind of dependent on having ult economy, whereas SPG through burst damage, combination of the wall as well as the tart form from Aid, they just have more sustain and more burst. So in a neutral engagement where there are no ultimates, they're going to have more chances to close out.
Oh no, Sokichan! I mean, it's not completely useless, but it's certainly not the eliminations that LEAMICS were hoping for. And once again, they're blown up. Absolutely exploded That grenade has been dealing so much damage.
I mean, it's tough, right? Like, you're not the Reaper's the ultimate. I mean, you can have the check mark there. You're not going to get kills with it, barring unless there's an absolute misplay on SPG side. There are just too many mitigating factors. Immortality field, the boot to push the Reaper away from 3 targets, right?
Oh, and now Soki-chan.
Oh, ooh.
Just barely,
so close.
I don't even know how Soki-chan gets up there, but Grace is not so lucky on the escape, and eventually Soki-chan gets hunted down. SPG, after that first fight, it has been rubber hitting the road.
I mean, and now we're in panic switching territory. Soki-chan onto the Ashe. I mean, maybe you can use the Matrix to kind of get a headshot combo here, I guess. And you're grasping for straws. It's not me grasping for straws, it's LEAMICS at this stage.
Well, they need to hold on to Grace. There we go. All right. Ant Matrix
He's not even forcing sound
avoided
barrier
here by SPG. Aid gets so low, but doesn't get finished off. Here comes the sound barrier. Here comes the push. SPG, they're waiting no longer. Yeah, no, they've got this. Underlock and key. I say that. LEAMICS did scatter pretty effectively, but maybe too effectively. They're not able to support each other or get back to the objective very efficiently. Taylor trying to hold on. He's been an overtime king before in this series, but Aid doesn't give him much of a chance. Blows him away. And that is a blistering fast cap for SPG.
What a sort of anticlimactic setup for the 5th map, hey?
Sometimes that's how it be. Orisa, good character. Now, LEAMICS, on their first escort map of the season, have to try and figure out a way to push past this brick wall of a composition. Such a nice isolation onto Soki-chan. I mean, Soki-chan was kind of getting read like a book here. I mean, this was right after the Death Blossom that got completely negated by Milgaro, who he knew where Soki-chan was going to be, like he came back from the future to tell SPG about it.
I mean, the other, I think that's a cool play, but the big one that stands out to me is in that 3rd point, right? Where Osiris uses the amplification matrix, and SPG, they literally just have so much time that they walk away and re-engage with sound barrier. They don't use it defensively.
Yeah.
I mean, that speaks of confidence.
That tiniest hair of damage too onto Aid, right?
Oh yeah.
That's a lot of the time the difference between a player like KSJ and Aid. KSJ, again, no knocks to him, but is less experienced than Aid, who has been through the ringer in Contenders quite a few times. And now SPG, they're going to go for an aggressive hold, it seems, as well. I can't fault them for it either. Just bleed the clock away from LEAMICS. Don't give them many chances to extend this map into extra innings.
Soki-chan continues to play Mystery Heroes.
Ooh, I kind of like this. Yeah, Ampier realizes that SPG have overplayed their hand, and now they're getting picked apart. Really nice call from Ampier there, and now he'll go back to the Sojourn with all that ult charge in pocket.
Mark it. The first Widow out of spawn that finds value.
Okay.
I mean, listen, that Lee Soo-min just kind of hovering out in the open, just trusting that no one is going to shoot at him. Not how it works.
Wait, guys, they can't shoot me first. I'm the support, not the tank. That's no fair. That's not Lee Soo-min. That's just nothing, honestly. The Metro now for Although as well. That's a nuisance. Taylor?
No.
My guy?
You get one.
Okay,
you get one.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, gets one. Unfortunately, LEAMICS, their one has been used now, and Grace has been staggered a bit. And this is a really obnoxious choke to break through, too. Despite getting wiped pretty early, SPG, I think they're happy with how this defense is looking so far.
The first real fight of the defense is a commanding reset. Weirdly, despite having lost that first fight, SPG also have more ult charge.
Yeah, I mean, because the second fight was a complete brutal wipe, right? And it lasted a little bit longer.
And I mean, the other problem too with Shimbali Monastery is that you get to regain high ground control, right? How are you going to bypass without Symmetra? So.
I mean, Grace just has to try and force into this, and look how he gets juggled by that. Oh, this artillery is trying. I mean, even though it doesn't get the kills, it's just so much damage. LEAMICS not given time to lick their wounds. SPG tear the wounds wide open. and only 2 minutes remain now for LEAMICS if they want this reverse sweep.
And Imperial is going to be dead. It's going to be caught as a very late stagger. Tries to play his life, and I mean, you just sometimes you have to just admit that it's done, you know. Okay, so things slow down a little bit now for SPG. For LEAMICS, it's about getting into position and I mean, setting themselves up for success. You want to trade Rampage for Sound Barrier, and you want to open up Imperial to get the overclock later.
They're going to speed high ground control and just try to out-rotate this. Ant Matrix now to keep SPG at bay while they try to abscond with the cart. Milgaru doesn't quite read the play correctly this time. Now a TP in, just going straight to their deaths. That lets LEAMICS break this choke and gives them a chance to cap first.
It does give them a chance to cap first, but not a big one. Keep in mind that SPG will reset to high ground control. And now they have the Ant Matrix without cover, or rather LEAMICS will not have cover to face down this Ant Matrix, and so they'll have to use Sound Barrier. But again, that just means that SPG will be able to use a later Sound Barrier to contest the objective. And
oh, I like this play though. Artillery strike to keep SPG busy and thinking about the forward fight instead. And Pierre, did he actually commit to that flank play? Yes, he did. He's up top. He needs to find the headshots. He's been the hero for LEAMICS so far, but couldn't stop Wu Chan's Sound Barrier. Oh, the first fumble for Empire this entire series. And it's right when LEAMICS needed it most. 30 seconds left for them to get one last fight, and they used everything.
That was the handshake fight. That was the one that said, we are going for broke. It is going to be, it's either here or nothing. LEAMICS will make last-second changes, but they are too slow, and they will not. I mean, they're playing for a clutch. It's Grace going to give bubbles to Impure or Sophie Chart to play in the front line. It does not feel comfortable, and they have nothing left.
One last Hail Mary. Oh, and this is just rude. Aid holding on to the artillery as long as possible, just to keep LEAMICS busy. Here comes the shove. Soki Chan, okay, survives. Grace face checking Aid, but no, not enough bubbles in the world to keep you up against all that damage. Soki Chan split from his supports and unable to be kept alive. Empire and Osiris trying to get behind SPG, but it wasn't meant to be. Oh, SPG, how cruel you are to give LEAMICS hope before denying the reverse sweep.
This is now back-to-back games for SPG where they let it slip away from them a little bit, but in the end, they close up shop the victor. And Simprissa Gaming have put themselves in a position to challenge for first place, or at least the top end of their group. Unfortunately for LEAMICS, it feels like this is the end of the road here. A hard-fought victory, or a hard-fought loss, but a loss nonetheless. And yet, I mean, what a bright spot for them to kind of roll out towards the end of the season.
There may yet be a mathematical chance for LEAMICS to squeeze into playoffs, but they need a lot of assistance, and they need to somehow 3-0 Euphoria when they play them later on this week. Not an enviable task, and they also need to hope that JNGK has a rough time. KSJ, he ended up having a rough time this series, but make no mistake, in the earlier maps, KSJ was absolutely popping off on the Bastion.
And I mean, you know, no faults to KSJ. This is the path of a young player, right? When you're put in a position to succeed, you do tremendously. And then when your opponent counterpicks you, you have to have the flexibility to earn that performance back. So I think this is, as the player of the match, that first half of the series really was KSJ taking front and center position. Certainly. And now has to, I think, with the sort of accolades that this kind of gives to him, the benefit to learn and just become a better player moving in the future, you know, to try and take the place where you can have that flexibility on top of it all.
And even on maps 4 and 5, it took the entirety of LEAMICS dogpiling KSJ for them to actually be able to pull off some of these wins, right? The guy is a menace on this Bastion. That tracking is certainly sublime. Excellent stuff for him. And KSJ are very, very new. Like, there are a lot of new-ish players in this season of Contenders' career, right? But KSJ, absolutely fresh to Contenders' career.
You can see, I mean, just the brilliance that knowing when to engage is something that's very difficult to teach. And to have that kind of be, you know, a position here. And I think one of the nice things too to bolster up SPG is that when they need that flexibility, they have the, you know, the bench. And so ASG does not have the weight of the world on him, right? Just perform the best of your ability and kind of move on from there. And
certainly.
I mean, with that, SPG, I mean, questions still remain. They do have 3 wins, and they have, you know, stayed undefeated.
Technically secured for playoffs.
Yes. But now comes the question of what does playoffs look like for them? Do they have it in them to kind of... You really shouldn't be going to a map 5. As well as LEAMICS played today, you should not be going to a map 5, you know, in games like this. Even that game against Euphoria. Very much a tale of 2 teams when it comes to this squad. And so they got to hammer out some of those practice points and kind of move into the playoffs looking to be a dominant force that we know they can be.
Yeah. And that's sort of been the call of SPG for as long as I can remember, right? We know what the skill ceiling is. It's just where are we setting the skill floor? Not even in an individual match, but like a map, right? It's hard for me to believe that SPG of Antarctic Peninsula is the same one that we saw a little bit later on with Surabasa. But either way, SPG get their win. LEAMICS are still hunting for a match win, but they get some maps, so good for them. We got one more series for you folks tonight. An important one, too, when we come back from a break.